A little bit about me. My name is Hector Ayala. I'm only 9 years old in this church, so it's kind of crazy because some of your kids have been here longer than me. My daughter's only been here 1 year less, 2 years less than me, so that's kind of crazy when you think about it. I'm from Ventura County, as my wife likes to call it, Ventucky. It's a completely different place than this. Where I used to live over there, there's a lot of churches. They call it Little Bethlehem. People go to church there. It's not like here where you have to hand out a flyer. You just open a church and they come running. So this has been culture shock to me at times. A little homesick at times. But I know this is where I'm supposed to be. And this right here is just proof that patience has gotten me to the next level that I need to be with God. So let's get started. So how I ended up here today was kind of weird. I was teaching the middle school, and we were going to do a crazy project outside because I tried a project upstairs, and it went well with the students. It didn't go well with the teachers. So 2 weeks in, I already got rebuked. Not a bad thing. So we're outside, and here comes Josh, and I looked at him, and he's kind of like, Josh, hey, Hector. And I was like, hey, Josh. And he had that look on his face, and I was like, he wants a donut. He's going to make me go get him a donut, because I bring him donuts so that if I ever do anything anymore, he's like, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it. So he goes, hey, can you preach on Sunday? And I was like, yeah. And I almost fell over, though, because I was like, whoa, he just asked me to preach. He's putting a lot of faith in me. But then I thought, too, because he tells me, yeah, we're going to go to this thing, and as the Scribners are going to be there, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay, so Pastor Rob's going to be there. So if I screw up, I'm not going to get rebuked. He's going to get rebuked over there, and I'll just call out for a week at school. So I'm not worried about any of this. So Josh, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to speak from what God wanted me to speak from, and that's it. So what I did was I went home, and I told God, I said, God, what do you want me to pray about? What can I possibly pray about? What can I speak about here tonight? And he just straight out said, how did you get here? And I was like, well, I got married, and and he's all, how did you get here? What brought you here? Because my roots are in Catholicism. My family is all Catholic. There are 2 churches that we have all been married in. Am I right, Dad? And these are 2 really awesome churches. There's a big thing out front where everyone takes a picture. You have about 100 people in your wedding. No one comes to the wedding because they're all in it. So I remember a week before my wedding, I got a little convicted because I was like, is it right for me to leave Oxnard? Is it right for me to start a family out here? Is it right for me to go to another church? And I'm praying the whole PCH home in my car, in my truck. It's an F.R.O.G 150. It was my baby at the time. It didn't make it back here with me that day, and my grandpa ended up owning it the rest of his life, and he enjoyed it. But I get home, I pray this whole time, and my grandpa comes out. And he just comes out, oh, hey, blah, blah. He's talking to me in Spanish. I don't know Spanish very well. So usually I just like, oh, okay, and I try to pick up the words. And then he starts talking to me in English. And he goes, I'm going to tell you something right now. It doesn't matter where you get married as long as you believe in God. Because we all believe in God, and that's all that matters at this moment in time. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even ask him about that. All I did was pray. And I was like, hey, there's my answer. Then I went and talked to my grandma. And my grandma's in there and kind of broke my heart because I saw how she made her salsa. I thought she did it all like hardcore, and she was just throwing it in a blender. I'm just looking at her, and I'm talking to her, and I'm like, hey, Grandma, I'm a little worried about moving and stuff. And she goes, no, you need to go now. This is your time. This is your time to go. Go do whatever it is that you're supposed to do out there. And that's where I went. And that is basically what I'm going to preach on today. And basically, the title of my report is F.R.O.G. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's fully rely on God. It's something that some people forget. I've taught it to like my nephews and nieces. My daughter knows it. You'll get it all completely at the end. But that's what I'd like to preach on today. So if we can just bow our heads and pray real quick. Lord, I just thank you for this opportunity that I've been given, this opportunity that you brought me here, you brought me to this pulpit. This is more than 30 years in the making, God, and I just thank you for that. I thank you that for the people that are here tonight, and I just pray that just one little morsel will resonate with at least one person here, if not all of them. I thank you for what you do. In your name I pray. Amen. So, fully relying on God. How do you get to fully rely on God? Well, the first step is actually a three-parter. And that is the first thing that you need to do when you're going to rely on God is what I did. I had to ask him. And I had to be specific. I had a professor at USC. We're not going to get into universities right now. And he always told me, I read a question, and I go, no, he can throw it back. You need to be specific with what you want to do. If you're not specific, I can't answer you. And that's how God is. You can't sit there and tell him, hey, I need $1 million. That's like, you might as well go buy a lotto ticket and risk your time. You need to tell him what you want. Lord, I want this house in this specific place. Lord, I want to serve here. Lord, I want to be a part of this church. I want to teach here. I want to help these kids do this, X, Y, and Z. That's what you need to do. That's the most important thing. Matthew 7:7, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open. Matthew 21:22, and whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive it if you have faith. Faith is the other key component when you ask. If you don't have faith in it, it's not going to happen. I'll tell you right now, we've talked about faith in the church now. I think Josh has talked about it for like a week, maybe 2. I've been just hammering the middle schoolers with faith beyond belief because that is the cornerstone of how your relationship with God is going to go. There's no other way around it. So it's like you say, you can have the faith of a mustard seed, or you can have huge faith. Me, when I look at faith, I look at it as a faith of my sister-in-law, Michelle Villasenor, because that is faith right there. You want to talk about something that's where it's like, whoa, blow my mind? Here's my sister-in-law. She's right over here. She's had the faith to raise money to go to Africa. She's had the faith to go and get a certificate to teach at the infant center. I mean, she's done things that some other people haven't been able to do in schools. It's amazing. And whenever I like to preach on it, it's like, do I have the faith of Michelle? Because I've never met someone so unstoppable. It's just an amazing thing. If you don't know her, you need to get to know her. For me, one of the things that I asked for, I got kind of complacent in Ventura County. I was working at a law firm, and law firms are only good when everyone's divorcing. That's just the sad reality of it. And when divorces kind of stop and everything's going good in the world, that's when law firms are going bad. Kind of a weird thing. So I was working at a law firm. We were doing a lot of work, and then all of a sudden the work kind of stopped. Let go of a couple people. I got to stay, so I needed to find a second job because I didn't know what was going to go on. So I went and I got a job at the Best Western Hotel because I was a night auditor there, so I could take a nap and get some sleep if I needed to, but I still got paid for it. And the money was pretty good. I'm doing 2 jobs. I've got some good insurance, but man, I was lonely. And don't get me wrong, because the weekends I would get to see my parents, I get to see my grandparents. I had my first nephew, Paulie. I love that kid. Just like, it was like, not like my own son, but I got to see him a lot. So I kind of but I wanted my own kids, and I wanted my own wife. And finally, there was just one day where I just had enough, and I just said, Lord, and I got down on my knees. I can tell you right where it was. If we ever go to the Best Western over there, they have a marriage retreat or something. I'll tell you exactly the place. And I just sat there and I said, I want a wife. I want a wife that has Christian values, a wife that has a strong belief in God, a wife that's going to challenge me. I was specific. 24 hours later, I met Angela. I mean, and Angela was a challenge. Don't get me wrong. She made me work. But we got along because we both had faith in God. But I don't meet her if I do not ask. If I don't ask, I don't know, maybe I'm still working at the Best Western, and I know I didn't work at the law firm because that thing went under. So there's just things that God works in mysterious ways. That's just for me, though. I mean, for you guys, what are you going to ask for? For a student, is my president here from high school? Oh, yeah, there's my ASB president, Stephen LaHood. Stephen's going to ask, Lord, I want to go to a 4-year university. I want to go to USC, right? Okay. Parents, there's my dad. Dell, success for your children. You reach that point where you just want the success for your children. That's what you're praying for. That's what you're asking for. I mean, there's so many things, but you have to be specific. You need to be specific with what it is. You need to have the faith to ask God, though, too. One of my favorite examples in the Bible is the story of Samson when it comes to asking. And it's like the last thing he ever asked. And I remember it because my mom bought this red book. It was a comic book, but it was like this thick. It was an actual, the Bible comic book. And she read that thing to me almost all the way through elementary school, me and my brothers. And I think maybe at the end, it had gotten so worn out, there was just a couple pages. But let me read Judges 16:28 through 30. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. Then Samson reached toward the 2 center pillars on which the temple stood, bracing himself against them, his right hand on the one and his left hand on the other. Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than when he lived. I mean, he asked. This guy had no more strength, nothing. And what did he say? God, I still have faith in you even though I did wrong. Let me just destroy these pillars. Let me do your bidding once more. And that's another thing that we kind of get lost in when we ask God. Sometimes we just decide we're going to ask God for something, but we forget we should give something in return, whether it be a tithe, whether it be serving in some aspect. And in this church, there's a lot of things to serve in. There's a lot of leaders here. There's a lot of potential leaders here that we should be mentoring. So just things to think about. But that is the first thing in F.R.O.G. You have to be able to have faith to ask for help or whatever it is that your desire is. The second thing is something that's probably difficult for, I'm going to say for any human being, is to be patient when you ask. I mean, we're in a day and age now where we have the TED Talks. I think those are like 15 minutes, and then you're supposed to have figured out everything in those 15 minutes, and you're just like this super genius, and you know everything out of the 15 minutes that you're there. It's just the most amazing thing. I think that there's football teams, and I don't think any of them have won at all. They picked up this thing like, hey, our guys, they can't even pay attention because they're on the phone. We're going to do 10 to 15 minutes of teaching inside about the game plan, and we're going to let them run wild. I think the only one that's really, yeah, you know what? Other than Tom Brady, who actually really puts the work in, I don't see any other teams that are really dominating like that team does. And so when you think about it, 10, 15 minutes, I don't think LeBron James, and I'm not a Laker fan, but I don't think that guy just goes, hey, let's just do 10, 15 minutes and talk, and then we'll just get going from there. No, I mean, these guys, the winners are the ones that put the work in. They're the ones that are willing to listen, and they don't lose their concentration. But the one thing about them is they're patient. They're patient to the very end. They're patient to the very end in the games. They're patient to the very end in the season. They don't sit there and go, this is a marathon, or this is a race. We got to run it. It's a marathon. Take your time. God's going to answer you in his own time. The other thing is, God might not even want you to have what you're asking for. He might want something else for you. I wanted to be a lawyer. I'm up here preaching. I'm teaching in the middle school. teaching at the high school. It's the funnest thing in the world. I come home smiling. And you guys know me. I mean, less than 24 hours ago, I had a beard about this big, and I was sitting there like this. So tired. I got to get this thing written. But man, I'm there, and it's just like, wow. And you're making a difference. And I've seen some ugly things in law. There's a reason why I left in the first place. But that's neither here or there. But I tell you, it's God has a plan for you. You have to be patient and listen for it. Just don't jump at the first thing unless you know for sure. He wants to make sure you're all in too. It's one thing to sit there and ask for like that temporary fix, like, oh, I just need a little bit of money for this, or I need a little bit of money for that. Then you keep coming back. I just need a little money for this and a little money for that. It's like, I can imagine being God up there. I'm like, you just asked me for this like last week. Now you're asking again, and I gave it to you last week. So what's going on down there? Are you putting any of the work in? Because you have to put the work in. Show him you're all in. Junior's not going to show up and be like, I want to score 10 goals today. Part the C's. No, Junior's going to be working. He's going to do the leg works. He's going to do the stomach work. He's going to be doing all the kickings and everything. And then God's going to sit there and go, okay, I'm going to part the C's. I'm going to not injure everyone on the team, but they'll temporarily fall down. You go just waltz right in. Because Junior is one of the biggest testimonies here. But that's it. You have to be all in. That's one of the biggest things. The other thing is you can't lose faith. Losing faith, just to me, it's like the easy way out. And you don't want the easy way out. You have to kind of get yourself a little dirty. There's, I'll reference comic books every once in a while just because that's what I like. And there's a comic book where this guy has lost everything. And it was one of the first comic books that I picked up in a long time. And he's lost everything, and he's climbing back up. And at the end of one of the things where he's literally like rebuilt everything, he goes, it's okay to get your hands a little dirty sometimes. And it is. Dell, when she goes to Africa, she gets her hands more than a little dirty. Way more. But you have to be patient. I came to this decision about 3 years ago. Oops, sorry. I got baptized by Josh at the whatever station it is over here. 46, 26, whichever one. He might have dunked me a little too long, but that's okay. He and I weren't that best of friends back then. So I got up after that. It was like, you have to give your testimony. Why are you doing this? And word for word, this is going to happen, is what I said. It's going to be time for me to preach. I had to wait 3 years. And I had to keep praying. And I'm probably the most impatient person that anybody knows. Angela will tell you. Angela is like my better half with you need to calm down. You need to relax. And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. We'll just pray. And I waited on this moment, and I waited on this moment. And honestly, this is not how I pictured it, but I'm just happy that it happened. And it's just a testimony that you have to wait. The last part of F.R.O.G, after you've asked with your faith, after you've been patient, you have to answer the call. The most important thing is to answer the call. Now, let me make it clear. I know that there are some people that have preached, and there's some people that I've spoken to, and they're like, well, if you don't answer the call at that moment, you've lost it for good. I don't believe in that. Let me tell you why. I was studying to be a deacon, but I just didn't feel like that was my full calling. I did want to preach. That was in my 20s. So, here I am preaching. I didn't miss that blessing. It just took a little longer to get where God wanted me to get. So that's what you always have to remember. That's my disclaimer on that part. So, but answering the call. Matthew 7:24. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine, puts them into practice, is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And it's for different people, it's different things. For a single person, it's praying that you get married, and then he tells you, or he tells you, it's either him or her, marry that person. This is the person for you. It might be a difficult road, but if you guys both have God in your life, you're going to be okay. It might be to preach. It might be what I asked for at the beginning of this year. I continued to say, Lord, I want to preach. But then I said, Lord, I want to teach. Lord, I want to do a home group. I mean, I wanted to do the whole thing. I had to sit down and have a little church because of COVID in my house for like a year. It was frustrating, but it helped me figure out what I really wanted to do. So I prayed for that. April, Pastor Paul was talking like he said. I'm thinking of doing a Bible study. We're thinking of doing a Bible study. I go home and talk to Angela. She goes, that's the answer. Text him right there. I must have texted you at like 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, and you responded back right away. That's God answering that this needs to get done and started now. And like he said, we at this point, we're on an overflow. And I'm pretty sure it's going to get bigger than that. Brother Angel, he's not here right now. No disrespect to him at this point. I hope he doesn't get upset. We're working on a ministry for the high school boys that we're hoping we're going to open up in January. A discipleship for them. So that we'll have more ushers coming through here. We'll have more preachers coming through here. We'll have a bigger group coming through. Because one of my biggest pet peeves is a lot of people leave this church and they don't feel sometimes like they can come back. And I want to make sure that they know that they're this family. You guys opened up to me, and I am like, I would be considered by some people like way outcasted from everyone else, considering like an outsider. So my heart right now on that is to make sure everyone stays, everyone feels welcomed. And then teaching. God told me, he said, you need to go bug Josh Scribner. And Josh, I probably crashed his phone a couple times. I mean, I was emailing him, I was calling him, I was texting him. I couldn't get him here. Like, I go get him. He's gone. He had like people around him. I was like, I'm never going to get this guy. So I'm going to keep doing it. And God kept going, you need to keep doing this. You need to. So by July, he goes, hey, I need a teacher. What do you want to teach? And I was like, what do you want me to teach? And I'm like this, Bible and history, Bible and history, Bible and history. And he goes, I need Bible and I need history. And I was like, hey, perfect match, let's do this. And I'm just having a ball with that. It's just great. And then, of course, the preaching. Josh and I started talking about this in April as well. Like, everything hit in April. And we talked about it, and it's just, things were busy. I mean, this school is growing back here. This church is growing. It's just a great thing. Hopefully all the ministries start getting back up. Your ministry starts getting back up. Those ministries start getting up. New ministries start popping up. And so it was a busy time. But you know what? God helped me get through, and here I am. So those are the components for F.R.O.G. But just with everything that you want to do in life, there's always barriers. And that's my second point. And the first barrier, I think I just kind of glossed over it, but it is that lack of faith. And the lack of faith, if there's any advice that I would give to you guys from my own personal experience, when you're feeling the lack of faith, call someone from the church and ask for prayer. Do not be afraid to ask. That's another thing that with the barriers, we're afraid to ask. I mean, guys, naturally, we're just afraid. We just don't like to ask. How many guys here enjoy asking for directions? Exactly. I think Pastor Paul remembers, like, before the cell phones and stuff, you had to carry a big old map. And you had to memorize that map before you picked up whoever, and you're like, all right, we're going. And then if you screwed up, you just like, I'm going to go get some gas and get out, and then you go, hey, where do I go to so-and-so and so-and-so? That's it. But you have to be able to ask. There's a lot of people that don't like to ask. But it goes both ways. It's a vice versa thing. Because as Christians, we should be able to tell when someone's struggling, and we should be able to go up to them and ask, hey, what's going on? Let them say it and then pray with them. And let's go and say, hey, let's pray for what you want. Let's talk about it. Another thing is people leaving the church. That's a big barrier. People don't get what they want. Some people, they want recognition. They want whatever the blessing they requested right now. And they get mad at the church. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not the church's fault. The church is just here for you guys to pray at. It's for me to pray at. It's for all of us to pray at. That's it. If you're having a problem with whatever it is that you think you're not getting, you need to pray on it. You need to go ask God, why am I not getting this? What's going on here? You need to F.R.O.G. You need to fully rely on God and tell him. There's just no other way around it. It bugs me when people leave this church. It bugs me when people leave any church. I'm not into church bashing. I don't like it. I don't like it at all because there's good people in church. There's bad people in church too, but it's okay. Sorry, I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit. I thought I left it at home. But seriously, almost everyone I know that leaves a church, they think that grass is greener on the other side, and it's not. But to anyone that's listening, to anyone that you guys know, you let them know the church is still open. We're still here. You don't have to go talk to X, Y, and Z just because you don't like them. You don't have to go talk to A, B, and C. You don't have to go to the extra things. All you got to do is come pray, do your business, go ahead and go home. Maybe God will tell you then, you need to go do X, Y, and Z. But I just don't know a lot of people that their lives are a lot better leaving the church. I don't. And that's just, it's on a personal level, family and friends. And it's just something that bugs me. It's not something where I enjoy conversations. It's probably something I spend the most time praying on at night by myself. Even me, I've been frustrated with this church at times. Believe it or not. And there was a time where I was going to take my little tribe, and I was like, we're gone. We're going back to Ventura County. That's it. We are through. We're not going to go to school here. We're going to go to public school. We're going to go to the real school district. I knew everything. We'll live in the house over there, blah, blah, blah. I came to prayer and prophecy. A wise man got in my face, Pastor Harrison Summer. And he went like this: you need to stop, and you need to be patient. Man, that was like the authority of God. I was just like, And that was before Izzy came. So that was 4 years ago. And I've just, I was quiet about it. We ended up at the Yale Street. We ended up doing a lot of things in the church that, had I left, probably wouldn't have been doing them. And that's where it comes with where I hear missing the blessing. It's a catchphrase here that it is what it is. But that one does go both ways too. Angela, myself, we probably would have missed a blessing leaving the church. But look at what Angela and I do as well. The church would have missed a blessing. We forget those things, and we have to remember, those things go both ways. We have a fear of failing. We're prideful. These are the barriers that keep us from going to that next level. It's just like, we don't want to fail in front of God. If you fail in front of God, he's going to pick you back up. He's going to pick you up and say, keep going, don't worry about it. Like I said, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. One of the other things is, with the pride is like, I did it myself. I'm going to go ahead and talk about that real quick. I'll get back on my soapbox one more time. Doing it by yourself is pretty good. Congratulations. But I tell you this, most of the people I know that did it by themselves, their relationships struggled. They've missed things. They've missed things for their kids. Divorce. For a couple more bucks. I mean, is it really worth it? Think about that. I mean, I've never really met people that have sat there and said, I did it all by myself, and then my life is great. It's like, I need more, but their life is suffering. You come here and it's like, dude, God, I prayed with God and we did this. I got this promotion. My life is good. You don't hear that complaint. When you're faithful to God, He's faithful to you, and He continues to let you grow. One of the things that when you're in those barriers and you're hitting them, my dad gave me a plaque, and it actually sits in my restroom. Angela put it in there. I didn't understand why, but then I realized because there's mornings where I get up and I'm like, and I read it. And it's Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. How can it hurt you to ask when He doesn't want to harm you? I mean, He wants you to succeed. He wants everyone to succeed. When you're asking Him, He knows you're asking Him because you have faith in Him. You're willing to follow Him. You're willing to do what He asks of you. He's not going to let you fall. So if He doesn't answer, you're probably on the wrong path. But remember that. I mean, Jeremiah 29:11, it's a simple scripture, but man, it gets me going right off the top of the day. Okay. So, if you can get through the barriers, we're going to finally end up at point 3, the blessing and the reward. And the blessing and the reward, that could vary. For Pastor Rob, apparently it's ice cream. That's his reward. For my grandpa, when he was alive, I snuck him peanut brittle. He loved that stuff. That was the reward that when I got to see him, I'd bring him that. For some people, it's going to be starting a church. For some people, it's going to be getting in a university. It's up to you guys, though. What is the reward that you want? What is that blessing that you guys want? My biggest blessing is my wife, Angela. Angela has picked me up at times where I just didn't want to keep going. Angela has pushed me when I've needed to be pushed. And I'm gonna conclude this with one more story. When my daughter was born, there was something in her leg, but we didn't really think anything of it. It was a new thing at the time, too, so it's not really, you need a specialist to figure it out. So 8 months in, my mother-in-law says, you guys better go take her to get a x-ray. So we got that x-ray, and they said, oh, she has hip dysplasia. I was like, what the heck is hip dysplasia? So they're explaining it, you know, the hip pops out, and this and this. And it was kind of earth-shattering because it's like, they tell us she's going to need surgery ASAP. And Angela and I, we had to pray. Our family was praying. And we were blessed enough that when we went to the first doctor, that doctor said, I know this doctor, Dr. Rachel Goldstein. She just moved here from New Jersey. She's just happens to be working here for a friend tomorrow. I'll introduce you guys. So she's like, oh, yeah, I can take care of this. It's going to take 12 weeks? 12 weeks. And we're just like, oh, my God, we're not putting her in our cast for 12 weeks. So we prayed on this. Mind you, this has literally been brought to our front door. And we go to some other specialists, and they're telling us 8 months, 6 months. And we're praying and praying, and finally God says, you need to do this. So we go to Dr. Goldstein, and she does the surgery. It's supposed to be a couple hours. I think it was 30, 45 minutes. It popped right in. And we're like, oh, cool. So they put a cast on her. She's going to get 2 casts. She gets that first one. Everything looks good. She gets the second surgery. Second surgery does good, but the cast it's irritating her. And we're praying. And this isn't about me. This is about my wife. We're praying, and we go in for the checkup, and Angela goes, God told me today she's getting that cast off. I'm like, dude, it's 2 weeks earlier. There's no way they're going to take this cast off. Daniel, can you put that picture on the board? I didn't set this picture up. I just snapped the shot. 2 weeks. And they go, you know what? I trust you guys. I'm going to get this cast off of her. So, there it is right there. Fully rely on God. If you fully rely on God, He's going to give you what you want. But you have to rely on Him and be faithful. All right, well, that's it for me. I thank you guys. You all want to bow your heads now?